So first of all, we'll add the add to cart command. Our add to cart command needs to implement can execute, execute, as well as undo. And remember that the command needs to contain all the information for it to be able to execute. And of course, there are different implementations of the command pattern. In some implementations, the can execute as well as the execute method might take parameters. Like in WPF, for instance, it will pass a parameter to execute and can execute. Although I'm a firm believer that the command itself should take all these parameters in the constructor to make it easier for you to execute these commands without having to rely on any external input as the command is being executed. That means that our add to cart command needs to know about the product, the shopping cart repository, as well as our products repository. I've now introduced the constructor in our add to cart command. It takes an interface for our shopping cart repository, as well as an interface for our products repository. And what's interesting here is that our command now doesn't work with any concrete implementations, except for the product, which is only a simple model. But all that we work with are these interfaces, which means that depending on the situation, we might use different implementations for the shopping cart. So now we are pretty much ready for us to implement can execute, execute, as well as undo. We'll start off by implementing execute. We simply want to check if the product is not null when we execute this command. If the product is null, we'll just return from the method. When we execute our add to cart command, we want to make sure that we decrease the stock left, as well as adding this to our shopping cart. And you'll notice here that on our product repository, we have a method called decrease stock by. It takes the article ID as well as the amount that we want to decrease the stock by. And then we simply add this to our shopping cart. And now we have our execute method implemented for our add to cart command. Let's also go ahead and implement our can execute method. We can execute the add to cart command as long as the stock that we have available is greater than 0. The execute and can execute methods are the two methods that you commonly see on the iCommand interface. But of course, in some situations, you also have the undo method. So let's implement this as well. So when we undo the add to cart command, what we need to do is to put the items back where they belong. So increase the stock with the quantity that we have in our shopping cart. And then we simply remove all of those line items from our shopping cart. So now we have a complete implementation of our add to cart command. Although in order for us to convert our code that we have in our console application, there's one more concrete command that we need in our application. We need a way for us to increase or decrease the amount that we have in our shopping cart. So I'm going to add a command called change quantity command. The change quantity command will be used for both increasing as well as decreasing the amount of products in our shopping cart. Therefore, our change quantity command will have this enumeration of which type of operation that we want to perform. You'll see that the constructor for our change quantity commands take the type of operation, the two different repositories, as well as the product that we want to add to our cart. When we execute our command, we simply check, are we decreasing or increasing the amount of items in our cart? And then, of course, if we add something to the shopping cart, we remove an item from our stock. And we can execute the change quantity command as long as when we're decreasing the amount in our shopping cart, the available quantity in our cart is in 0, as well as then when we are adding something to the shopping cart, we have items available in our store to add to our shopping cart. And of course, we have the undo operation implemented as well. Now, if we go back to our program, we want to get rid of the parts that are interacting with our shopping cart directly. We simply want to instead use our new command manager as well as the concrete commands that we have now introduced. So let's just comment that out for reference. We'll create two instances of our commands. We'll need to pass the shopping cart repository, the products repository, as well as the given product that we want to add to our shopping cart. And now we want to introduce our increase quantity command as well. We want to be able to change the quantity of the amount of items that we have in our shopping cart. The operation for this will be increase. We'll have a reference to the shopping cart, to the products repository. Now we want to have these executed through our command manager. So this here represents the conversion from directly invoking our shopping cart repository into using the commands with our command manager. Now when we call manager.invoke, it'll execute the command and add it to the stack of commands that we have executed in our application. So if you run this here now, you'll see here that we still have added 5 SM7Bs to our shopping cart. That total is the same as we had earlier, so we can now get rid of all the direct interactions with our repository. What's of course very interesting here is that our console application now doesn't have to know anything about how to interact with our data store. It's up to the command to communicate with the receiver. So there's one final thing that I want to do in here. I want to undo all the commands that we just executed. So if we tell our command manager to simply undo everything that was just executed, and then we print our shopping cart, you'll see here that first we have 5 SM7Bs. We have the total price, and then when we print the total price again, as we undid everything that we added to the shopping cart, the price is now 0. This here illustrates how we can implement the command pattern in a C# application. Of course, this adds a little bit more complexity and another layer to keep track of in our application. But now we've separated our concerns. The console application no longer has to know about how to interact with our repository. And with the command manager, we get the benefit, in this case, of also having the undo method on our command. So now you know the fundamentals of introducing the command pattern in a C# application. Next up, we're going to look at an existing implementation in .NET and how you can combine that with your own commands.